Rob J gave me an incredibly generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Koma World Eater versus Onyxia, Saruman and Niv Mizzet Visionary. Haven't played against the Visionary yet, but it is a scary one to face off against, and with regards to our hand, it is far too slow. We're going to do absolutely nothing with that unless we're very, very lucky. So instead, well, at least Defense of the Heart can do a bit of something for us, hopefully. But other than that, I don't see that we're doing much of anything there either. It's turn 3, Tribute to the World Tree, then turn 4, Defense of the Heart, and hope that we get into some relevant ramp in the meantime. The Black Gate for Saruman. Draw back into the Hunter's Insight. We'll need a creature in play for that, which could come from Defense of the Heart, so if luck goes our way, we might be able to do something this game. Arcane Signet for Saruman means we might see a commander next turn. The Enchantress player goes for Starfield Mystic, making his enchantments cost less. Alright, that's pretty lucky. A Nature's Law means we could go for Defense of the Heart next turn. Depends on how many creatures our opponents get in. On top with the Hedge Maze is an Otawara. I think we're fine to throw away. Don't imagine we're going to see enough creatures thrown out for Defense of the Heart. More ramp for Saruman in the form of Talisman of Indulgence and Creativity. 4 cards left in hand. Artifact ramp for this player as well in the Arcane Signet again, and Khalni Heart Expedition after that. The 2-2 went in towards Saruman, and we'll begin our turn. Alright, I think getting down a tap land in the Field of the Dead is fine because we can go for Tribute to the World Tree. Definitely don't want our opponents playing around the Defense of the Heart. I don't think they would play around it, but certainly want to surprise them and try and have it survive a turn cycle. Mind Stone for the Izzet player into Razorkin Needlehead, ready for us to draw lots of cards. We see the Saruman player get his commander down. Satyr Enchanter before any more enchantments hit play, 3 cards for the Onyxia player. So maybe ready to get down Defense of the Heart so that this player will get a creature into play. Assuming that we're going to see Onyxia soon enough. Manages to play an enchantment into the Enchantress, Font of Fertility. So draws a card and the Razorkin Needlehead will ping him. And manages to play a land into the Khalni Heart Expedition, so it just needs one more counter on this. 2-2 comes in at us. Alright, Mana Gorger Hydra might be more tempting, so yeah, especially with the Hunter's Insight. We draw a card, lose a life. So get down an island here. I'll try and surprise my opponents with Cavern of Souls if I can, because I've got a couple of blue players. They might want to hold up priority to try and counter something of ours. I'm not sure what I want to keep from being countered with the Cavern of Souls. We do have some other Serpents, but we might want to use it on something else that we're eager to get through. Multiple plus counters on the Mana Gorger. We do not draw with the Tribute to the World Tree. First of many counters going on to the Hydra. Inferno Titan, that's the first of the big creatures to hit play. Looks like our opponent's gone for more the type of build that I decided on as well. I did decide on Spellslinger first of all, and then plumped for more of a creature-based deck, and if we see Niv Mizzet now, it's not going to be good. That was 2 damage, went on to the Starfield Mystic, and I assume 1 damage went on to a player. Bedevil targeting the Inferno Titan straight away, so not deciding to hold up priority or anything, just going for it straight away at sorcery speed. And now potentially seeing why, a Display of Power. Copy any target and or sorcery. So makes another Bedevil and goes after our Mana Gorger Hydra, so that didn't last long. And with creatures going down, it makes the Defense of the Heart a little bit less relevant. The Orc Army, now a 6-6. Herald of the Pantheon. Wouldn't mind seeing another creature. And an Abundance, 1 card left in hand for our opponent, although he is about to draw one. And gains a life whenever an enchantment enters, so that will help to negate the damage from the Needlehead. And again makes a land, so he's now able to crack the Khalni Heart for a couple of basics. And then we draw into a Roaming Throne, so we've got 6 mana this turn, 7 mana next turn. This doesn't have an ETB though, so I think it's going to be better to try and set up with Defense of the Heart and get Roaming Throne down after we want to swing in with Koma, or the phase before we swing in with Koma, I mean. Might draw into another non-basic land next turn, which will trigger the Cavern of Souls, so I'll just get that down here. And I'll just name Golem with the Cavern of Souls, because We don't have anything else in hand of any relevance at the moment. So just a case of trying our luck with the enchantment we've had in hand all game. And of course there's a swan song from our opponent. So at least we're going to have a blocker. Our opponent's getting pretty low on cards. I'm assuming that he didn't have a counter spell for the Niv Mizzet, so might be that that hits play here. And that did enter with multiple plus counters on it as well, so the Hunter's Insight might be relevant yet. And there is the Niv Mizzet Visionary. So likely during this turn cycle he's going to draw at least 3 cards thanks to the Razorkin Needlehead. And there's his first one during the draw step. We'll hope that he's got more spot removal here after using that Bedevil previously. There is a Feed the Swarm, so willing to take the 6 life for this, and I think it's worth it. Unfortunately makes this a 9/9, so I'm going to hope that it doesn't swing in towards us, because I would like to keep hold of this bird token. And it goes into the right instead. I think you do need to keep Enchantress players in check. He decides to take it, goes down to 25, shouldn't be too much of an issue to gain a bunch of life in an Enchantress deck. Does not crack the Kalni Heart Expedition, surprisingly. Could have had 2 additional mana this turn. Cracks it now, we could have done that at instant speed. Doomweight Giant enters, that will be -1/-1 onto everything. Of course draws a card thanks to the Satyr as well. So if he can get down another enchantment here, he'll be able to get rid of the Needlehead, which you have to assume he wants to do. Instead cracks a Font of Fertility. Abundance has shown us a couple of cards by the way. He's got Extinguish All Hope and Aura Shards. So a couple of 2/2s going in against the now 1/1 First Striker. Oh, it's only First Strike during your turn actually, not that it matters. Okay, so can we do anything here? Draw into another land. I'm assuming that we're going to see Extinguish All Hope soon. Although do they want to give up on their own Satyr Enchanter? Yeah, let's get some blockers into play. We've drawn into a fetch, so start to trigger Field of the Dead. And these will enter with plus counters on them thanks to the Tribute. More difficult to play this being triple green, but it is worth it because you get the plus counters on tokens. Do sometimes need to buy ourselves time in this deck because it can be quite slow to get your commander out, so hence the reason Field of the Dead is in here. Let's attempt to get our commander in, and that might encourage one of our opponents to use some kind of board wipe or spot removal. Draw another card, Sakura Tribe Elder will ping us with the Needlehead, and I'm going to swing into the left with our Flyer. So hopefully we'll be able to deal some damage with the Hunter's Insight during the next turn. Even if we deal some damage with Koma, we should be able to draw some cards with this. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Just hoping that we don't see the Extinguish All Hope, or even the Aura Shards could get rid of our Tribute to the World Tree. I haven't seen this one played yet either. I've only included it in one deck, I think, the Giggling Skitter Spike. So it's going to be difficult to deal damage to that, although our opponent looks as though he went for a Blasphemous Act, so 13 damage onto this, deals damage equal to its power to each opponent, so luckily wasn't made monstrous yet. Return it to the command zone. Our commander dies straight away unfortunately, and that just means that our opponent is going to keep hold of his Extinguish All Hope for longer. An Ankh of Mishra, that is when a land enters, not when it's tapped thankfully. Fact or Fiction for the Grixis player, and it's 3 lands, a Signet and the Nightscape Familiar. Not the best pile that he could have shown one of his opponents. Looks like it's us that has to pick. We'll put the 2 blue mana in one pile, and yeah, these in the other pile. I don't think it particularly matters. He decides to pick up the 3 cards, plays out the Nightscape Familiar, plays a land into the Ankh of Mishra, losing 2 life. And Saruman back into play again. 3 cards in hand, we know that he's got a land available to him. This time showing us an Omen of the Sun for the Enchantress player. And Aura of Shards we assumed was going to hit play pretty quickly, so now has to get a creature in. And it is a Nycthea into play for the first time, so triggering the Aura Shards, I would go after the Ankh personally, but might want to get rid of our enchantment. Okay, instead goes after the Arcane Signet, so might be trying to hurt the blue mana, and exiles from his graveyard a Doomweight Giant for -1/-1 onto all the creatures, so the Skitter Spike not lasting as long as you would expect, but with that creature entering does get rid of the Ankh of Mishra. So yeah, in a weird way that board wipe kind of playing into the Enchantress player's hand. I would have encouraged him on his next turn to use this personally. I'm not sure if he would have or not, but As an Izzet player, sometimes you have to encourage your opponents to use their stuff and drag the game out for yourself. Anyway, there we see an Off You Can't Refuse. I think we just need to play Roaming Throne simply for a card draw. So we'll get that out here. And obviously naming Serpent on entry, because we want it to get the double triggers on our commander. Eternal Witness, could just play that and grab Defense of the Heart. Let's drop an island. We can hold up an Offer You Can't Refuse. I doubt we're going to make use of it, but get some Field of the Dead action going once again. And we may well do something this game yet if we have any luck. Obviously we need Aura Shards to go down before we get Defense of the Heart out, but we have that option now at least. Drakuseth, Maw of Flames, has to attack in order to trigger, but it's going to continue to be a very interactive game by the looks of it. Warg Rider. Other Orcs and Goblins you control have Menace, and at the beginning of combat on your turn amass Orcs 2. And then Treason of Isengard is played into the Saruman, so amasses Orcs with that. Targeted the Fact or Fiction with it to try and see some new cards, so that is on top of the library. And now has a 7/7 Menace Ward creature. Omen of the Sun into play, we saw that revealed previously. A land was made here, so obviously drew into that this turn. And now a couple of creatures entering to the Omen, so Aura Shards targeting the Talisman. He is going after the blue mana on both players, doesn't want any of his stuff counted. And it will be -1/-1 because of the Doomweight Giant seeing the Omen enter. Then scrying 2, sacrificing the Omen of the Sun. And the Menace creature goes to the left, can't be blocked, so a Nixthea can get straight through. And exiles the Omen of the Sun in order to get it back into play in the form of a token. Will make a couple of humans, trigger the Aura Shards again. And Doomweight Giant gives another -1/-1, which I don't think is of any relevance. The Aura Shards does indeed go after our Tribute to the World Tree though. Now we've seen a few cards revealed here. I'm not sure which ones were off the Abundance, so I'm not entirely sure what's in our opponent's hand here. I'm assuming he's still got the Extinguish All Hope in hand. Anyway, Aura Shards going to trigger Ward 2 on our Roaming Throne because of the ward, going after the Talisman with the Aura Shards as well. See if he wants to pay the ward on this. He does, so going to get rid of our Roaming Throne. Okay, Amphibian Downpour for us, so we can hope that a few players cast multiple spells and then, yeah, it's likely that the Enchantress player might do that. But for now, do we just try and get some damage through somewhere? I think we're best just holding back blockers in all honesty. Sakura Tribelder can trigger landfall for us as well, so yeah, if we were able to make a land here, we could have gone defense, hope that someone deals with the Aura Shards, although it's not likely with an Izzet and a Grixis player. We'll get down the Sakura Tribelder, and then it's a case of holding up our interaction, waiting for some double or triple spells for the Amphibian Downpour. But I'm hoping that the Drakuseth is going to get rid of some decent stuff here. Hopefully we're all looking over at Nixthea as a threat. I mean, these guys have had their blue mana wrecked, so they kind of have to look over in his direction. Noteworthy that this land is an exotic orchard, so they can still have blue thanks to us, but instead decided to use that land on Electrostatic Field. Needs another couple of mana to get his commander back out again, so he's just decided to set up a Flame Break, 3 damage to each creature without flying and each player. So that doesn't kill off anything apart from the Warg, which is relevant. And it gets rid of a bunch of stuff here. I think we have to allow this. So let's just, for the sake of getting a land, crack the Sakura Tribelder, even though we're not going to keep hold of the zombie. The field is going to ping us all for 1 thanks to a sorcery being cast. And I'll assume that with damage being dealt to this, it's going to get finished off by the Drakuseth, so we can always hold off on the Amphibian Downpour. In fact, if we make it a base 1/1, this still has 3 damage markers on it, so that would kill it off. But 2 spells have been cast so far. And Drakuseth does swing in at the Enchantress deck. Has to go after the 2 commanders, you would assume. Yep, targets our zombie, that's fine. Saruman and Nixthea both going down. Continues to be a very interactive game. The Grixis player has had his colours wrecked here, so just holding up a 7/7 Orc army. And swings in at the Izzet player, so yeah, it's not a case of ganging up on the Enchantress deck apparently. only one card in hand over there, and decides to throw away the electrostatic field, which is fine. We obviously don't want that in play when Niv Mizzet hits. So let's see if our An Offer You Can't Refuse is relevant during the 3 colour player's turn. Shows us a Battle for Bretagard this time, off the back of the Abundance. Extinguish All Hope he did have in hand after all. So we know the one card that he's definitely got in hand here, because I kept better track of it. It is that Saga, and decides to play it straight away. So with this, choose any number of artifacts and or tokens. Yeah, he's going to continue to get Aura Shards triggers, unfortunately, but he can get that with his commander anyway next turn, so I'm not going to bother countering it. He'll just have to blow up the Mind Stone here. Alright, Shamanic Revelation. I mean, the format continues to get less and less creature based, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to stick our commander with any creatures, but we shall certainly try. Didn't manage to make a landing or to hold up An Offer You Can't Refuse to protect our commander, unfortunately, but it does have Ward 4, so I'll hope that there's no spot removal goes on there. Our opponents are at near enough no cards in hand. And I think if we can manage to land damage with our commander, it'll definitely be going in over towards Onyxia. Try and get rid of that player as quickly as possible. But my opponents deserve kudos for playing it out here, because Niv Mizzet Visionary isn't looking too good at the moment. Does manage to potentially get himself into some more mana with a Burgi. 1 card left in hand. But they're pretty much building up from scratch here. Not seeing the Saruman player do anything here, so I'm assuming he's just going to time out on us. I don't see with a lack of blue mana and 2 cards in hand there'd be all that much to think about. Okay, no, he is playing a Phyrexian Arena. Top deck mode for Onyxia, and gets himself into Starfield of Nyx. That's only at the beginning of the turn though, that might be the type of thing that I would counter. Gets himself into another creature, into the Aura Shard, so just manages to blow up the Phyrexian Arena straight away. Yeah, funny Starfield of Nyx in this deck when you want to exile things from your graveyard. Maybe just wants to use this to animate his enchantments. Anyway, Onyxia down again, doesn't have anything to blow up, and decided to make a creature copy of the Font of Fertility. 1 card in hand. So it looks as though we've managed to untap with our Koma intact. So let's see what we can do here. A Gaia's Cradle will be good with the Shamanic Revelation, so that's 2 good draws in a row as it happens. Let's swing into the right, I think. We just have to deal any damage, I think. Yeah, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it does have Trample. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 toughness that they can block with, but they'd have to throw away Onyxia, so I think we're fine to threaten damage over here, depending on how much damage we are about to get through. According to blocks that our opponents make, we could finally make use of the Hunter's Insight to save a bit of mana. So they decide to throw the 3-3 in the way. They might crack this in response. Alright, they are deciding to throw away the Onyxia. So that is 3, 4, 5 and 6. We could turn this into a 1-1 with the Amphibian Downpour. And that means that we could go after this as well. Yeah, let's go Hunter's Insight onto the commander. And then Amphibian Downpour after that, targeting the Onyxia. And we'll get a copy of that thanks to Storm. So target the Burgi. I don't think Burgi will be all that consequential now, but we'll do it anyway. So we're getting 2 damage through to our opponent. We're just going to draw 2 cards here. But it was a way of making it so that we could double up the Amphibian Mutiny or whatever it's called, in order to get a copy of it. So draw 2 with the Hunter's Insight. We get rid of all our opponent's creatures and manage to trigger the Koma as well. Alright, a Tireless Tracker. We've got Adrix and Nev also. So before the board gets wiped again, I think we go for Shamanic Revelation. Let's play Gaia's Cradle. Tap that down for... Oh, I forgot about the Field of the Dead, so we'll get another creature into the Gaia's Cradle. So that taps for 6, not 5. Let's go Shamanic Revelation. And that gets us into Mana Reflection, Kindred Discovery, Watchful Radstag, Fire Shrieker. So yeah, looking pretty good here. Why don't we just play the Tireless Tracker for the sake of making use of that mana? Because we're just holding up An Offer You Can't Refuse. Always want to surprise my opponents with things like Fire Shrieker. And then we have to discard 2 cards. I don't think the Watchful Radstag is going to do too much of anything That's just in here as a little bit of an experiment, to be honest. And I don't think Defense of the Heart is going to do much of anything this game, thanks to that Aura Shard, so we'll get rid of that. Tectonic Giant, is this when it enters? No, it's when it attacks or becomes the target. Noteworthy that a Nixthea has been left in the graveyard here, so yeah, they're obviously going to try and use this to get their commander back out, so it's probably worth an offer you can't refuse onto that, and it'll leave their Nixthea stuck. And they've got into some blue mana over here. Is it going to be quick enough for them to actually do anything this game? We've been forced to play the long one, and that just plays into the hand of the Simic player as long as we can keep hold of our colours. It's the massive benefit of not having to rely on rocks. This time revealing to us a Mesa Enchantress, so they may well go for that before the Starfield of Nyx. Not going to make any tokens with the Saga. See the Mesa Enchantress hit play first, as we were expecting. Aura Shards could blow this thing up, I don't see that there's a need for him to do that. But he does decide to, trying to garner favour now. And we'll see if our opponent scoops to us, countering his Starfield of Nyx. Not going to let him draw, just in case he gets into something that can interfere. Giving him the additional mana might allow him to play something this turn though. Never particularly liked the Abundance because it does, yeah, it can bypass lands, but it also shows you what you're drawing into, or shows your opponents what you're drawing into. So we know he's got Courser of Kruphix there, decides to make use of that treasure mana straight away, and draws himself into a Path to Exile, and he does have a treasure held up for that. Luckily we do have Ward, but he'll be able to hold up his mana and pay 5 mana to get rid of our Koma next turn. See on top of our opponent's library the Mending of Dominaria. So he's a resilient player over here, we definitely want to be getting rid of him. Draw ourselves into a Junk Winder. Now even if we manage to put some permanents to sleep, we can't get through enough commander damage with Double Strike because of the blocks they made previously. Might still be able to get it down this turn though. Let's play Reflecting Pool. I think I want to get down the Mana Reflection. If we give them too many targets for the Aura Shards, then, well, they won't be able to make as good a use out of it. And obviously we're forcing them to play creatures instead of enchantments then as well. So we'll play ourselves the Mana Reflection, and that will make the guy's Cradle really good. Means that it taps for 16 mana. So we could get a free Kindred Discovery here. Let's go Rishkar's Expertise. And we see ourselves a Sandstorm Salvager. Collective Resistance. Can't get rid of the Aura Shards with this. Sylvan Library as well. We'll name the Kindred Discovery, or name Serpent with Kindred Discovery. Collective Resistance can get rid of the Aura Shards as well though. So let's go for... Definitely want the Fire Shrieker into play. And then we should play ourselves Adrix and Nev as well. Or do we just want the Junk Winder? Yeah, let's get the Junk Winder in. Every time I put it in a deck I never get a chance to play with it. So that enters, draws us a card because it is a Serpent. Allows us into another land. Let's just play the Sandstorm Salvager and hope that we don't see a board wipe. Because if we can start buffing all these tokens, then it's obviously going to make them more of a threat. And that's another card that I haven't managed to play with all that much. So enters with a Golem token. And when a token enters, we can tap something down, so we'll get rid of the 4 toughness over here. Means that we'll land in more commander damage, assuming that they want to block. Play the Farseat with the 2 floating mana. And that will make landfall again. That can be Breeding Pool. And landfall means another token off the Field of the Dead, so we get another trigger with the Jump Winder. Okay, and it looks as though this player's scooping, so we've wasted some of our triggers, but there we go, that's probably the game one for us. He had Path to Exile available to him to get rid of our Koma, and we weren't getting commander damage on him next turn. But there we go. Get rid of the 4 toughness here instead with the Jump Winder. And now this player decided to scoop as well, so let's just go through to combat and see if the Middle Grixis player wants to scoop it up as well. Just turn everything in sideways. In fact, I think we've got our opponent down to 0 here. Kindred Discovery draws us a bunch of cards. And we draw into a bunch of mana, Elemental Bond and Swiftfoot Boots. And decides to scoop there. We would have made a bunch of Koma's Coils twice. And made even more triggers with the Jump Winder. So, oh, and also we would have drawn even more cards with the Kindred Discovery, of course, when those Serpents enter. So, yeah, wasn't looking too good at first, but our opponents managed to use all their interaction on each other and then not keep their hands full. And we managed to fly under the radar for the victory there, so hopefully you all enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you did. And a massive thank you to the patrons for supporting the channel financially as well. You can do so yourself via the link in the description below to get your name in the credits and such. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.